Brazil is one of the largest and most breathtaking countries in the world, rich in culture and home to countless wonders that often go overlooked. However, beneath its beauty lies a trove of mysteries that have remained largely unnoticed by the outside world. From the most painful insect on the planet to an abandoned jungle hotel, here are 15 of the most mysterious and terrifying discoveries recently made in Brazil. Number 15. Enormous waterfall system. The Iguazu Falls are waterfalls at the end of the Iguazu River on the border of Brazil and Argentina. They make up the largest waterfall system in the world and divide the river into the upper and lower Iguazu. That river is actually what forms the border between Argentina and Brazil. The name comes from the Guarani or Tupi words Wai meaning water and Wesu meaning big. Legend has it that a deity planned to marry a beautiful woman named Naipai, who fled with her mortal lover, Taroba, in a canoe. In a rage, the deity sliced the river, creating the waterfalls and condemning the lovers in the canoe to an eternal fall. The first European to record the existence of the falls was Conquistador Alvar Núñez Cabeça de Vaca, but they've been known about in Brazil for much longer than that. The falls are an incredible feat of geography, showcasing the fact that nature can form massive structures rivaling the most impressive of human feats. Number 14. The penguins of the summer. When you think of Brazil, you likely think of warm summers, beautiful beaches, large mountains, and various jungles throughout the land. The last thing that you probably think of is penguins because there's absolutely no way they would survive in a land as warm as Brazil. They're birds of the cold. They belong where it's icy all year round. And yet, during various periods throughout the winter, a set of 5 species of penguins, known as the Patagonian penguins, migrate to the shores of Brazil. Many believe that this is a sign of global warming and that these penguins are only going so far because it has gotten colder in those parts of Brazil during the winter. That, however, is not the case. These penguins have been migrating to these beaches for decades or perhaps even centuries, and nobody knows exactly why. It could be that fishing off those shores is particularly lucrative during that time of year. It could also be that these penguins are just more adapted to the warmth. Either way, they are an incredibly strange sight to see. Number 13. Abandoned jungle hotel. When somebody is walking through the jungles of Brazil, they're likely anticipating having to sleep on the ground or in a sleeping bag. Perhaps they even brought a tent in order to be a bit more comfortable, and that way they won't have to sleep under the skies that have a habit of raining a lot. What that person probably isn't expecting, however, is to find a massive hotel complex that was completely abandoned by its builders. The aerial towers, however, are exactly that. They are a set of buildings that make up an abandoned hotel right on the bank of the Rio Negro. The property featured 6 prominent towers, all being connected by 291 rooms elevated off of the jungle floor by walkways and paths. The catwalks throughout the trees are often regarded as the most beautiful part of it all. 5 miles of them span back and forth between the massive trunks, leading to various restaurants, rooms, and even swimming pools up in the sky. Unfortunately, these hotels were left to the elements when the Brazilian government acquired them in 2015 due to the massive debt that they acquired during the building process. Number 12. Most painful insect in the world. The bullet ant is a particular species of ant known for its incredibly painful sting, often being described as one of the most painful in the world. It is distinguishable from other ants because it is absolutely enormous, second only to the greater giant hunting ant. It is also hairier than other fellow hunting ants. The colony of bullet ants burrows and nests with different entrances on the ground between tree buttresses. Some arboreal nests have also been discovered, but those are particularly rare and aren't often seen in Brazil. While these ants do live in colonies, they generally search for food alone and hunt insect prey, as well as plant sap between dusk and dawn. The ants are often known to fall from high tree branches onto people's necks, where they'll then bite them aggressively due to a fear of the much larger creature. Once the mandibles are secured, they also thrust their abdomen forward to sting at the same time. While the venom is not enough to sicken or kill somebody, it is widely regarded as the most painful in the world. Number 11. The insane skateboarding of Brazil. You may have seen some examples of extreme skateboarding before, but I can guarantee that it was nothing like what is present within Brazil. Sandro Dias has very little left to prove in the world of skateboarding after winning 6 world titles, but the 44-year-old man still feels the need to wow the entire world from time to time. The sun was rising, and cars were on the highway when Sandro climbed up the bridge's ladder and rappelled out to scope out the wood ramp housed in the apex of the supporting column of the bridge. He strapped on his skating gear, said a quick prayer, and took off. His confidence grew within each perilous ride up and down the ramp to the point where he felt like he could easily complete a backside air over an incredibly busy highway. People watched with nervous excitement as he performed several tricks and eventually came down safe and unharmed. Though incredibly emotional, he has said that he believes it to be one of the most important things he's ever done in the world of skateboarding. Now it's time for today's topic. A quiet morning on a secluded Brazilian beach turned into a scene from a science fiction movie when locals stumbled upon a massive, otherworldly creature washed ashore. The enormous, gelatinous mass, with tangled tentacle-like appendages and a single eerily large eye, left residents and experts baffled. Witnesses described the creature as both fascinating and terrifying, its size dwarfing anything they'd ever seen. Marine biologists were quickly dispatched to the site, donning protective suits to examine the mysterious specimen. Early observations suggest it could be a deep-sea creature from uncharted depths of the Atlantic Ocean, possibly dislodged by shifting underwater currents or seismic activity. Its strange, translucent body and unique features hint at adaptations to extreme environments, like crushing pressure and total darkness. Speculations have run wild online, with theories ranging from it being a mutated species caused by pollution to an entirely new discovery that could rewrite marine biology. Some locals even suggested it might be evidence of prehistoric life resurfacing. However, skeptics argue it could be a decomposing mass of an already known species, distorted by time and tides. Whether groundbreaking discovery or peculiar fluke, this bizarre creature serves as a haunting reminder of the mysteries lurking beneath our oceans. Number 10. Little Finland. Penedo is an amusing little Brazilian village with a very unique history compared to the rest of the country. It was one of the very few Finnish colonies in the country, located between Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo. It is now seen as a large tourist site because of how out of place it looks compared to the other villages. The village of Penedo started in the 1920s as a religious Finnish colony with large ambitions. Meat products, alcohol, and smoking were strictly forbidden. The leaders wanted to build a paradise free from the usual components of human sin, but this didn't work out in the end. The leaders adapted, however, and changed their approach to be one of tourism. This was incredibly successful, and now many Brazilian tourists visit the village on weekends and holidays. The farm started with grand ambitions, but the failure largely came from the fact that the land had been used to cultivate coffee beans. This deprived it so heavily of nutrients that the solitary Finnish paradise couldn't possibly exist, and therefore the tourist destination was born. Number 9. The radioactive beach of Brazil. The town of Guarapari is a coastal one located within Brazil and has become quite the popular tourist destination over the past couple of years. The beach located within the town is famous for its naturally high radioactivity level, with several amateur scientists coming down with Geiger counters in order to record readings of it. The radioactive sands actually extend along a roughly 500-mile stretch of Brazil's Atlantic coast, and these bizarre beaches run from north of Rio up to the region south of Bahia. Some researchers believe that the monazite-rich sands, which contain elements like uranium and thorium, have been accumulating on these shores for millions of years due to natural geological processes. Despite the radiation, some locals believe that the sands possess healing properties, with many visitors intentionally burying themselves in the warm grains in hopes of curing ailments such as arthritis and muscle pain. Interestingly, there has been ongoing debate among scientists about whether the radiation levels pose a significant health risk, or if they are low enough to have minimal impact on short-term exposure. While some studies suggest that prolonged exposure to the sands could slightly increase the risk of radiation-related illnesses, there has been no conclusive evidence linking beachgoers to higher cancer rates. This controversy has not deterred tourists, as the beaches remain a hotspot for both sunbathers and curious scientists looking to study this natural phenomenon. The unique nature of the beach has even drawn comparisons to other radioactive locations around the world, such as the famed Ramsar beaches in Iran, which also have naturally high background radiation. The reason for the radioactivity is not known for certain, but it is estimated that it is because the waves pound coastal mountains rich in monazite, a phosphate of rare earth metals containing uranium and thorium. These small amounts of radioactive metals are enough to be detected on a Geiger counter, and if someone lived on the beach, they would likely be affected. The nearby town, however, doesn't really experience any more radiation than the average citizen within the country, which is lucky for them. Number 8. The largest freshwater fish. In an isolated river within Brazil, there is a reservoir that is teeming with an incredibly rare type of fish that is only really seen in aquariums in the modern day. It is called the arapaima, and they are one of the largest types of freshwater fish on the planet. They are indigenous to South America, specifically within Brazil, but overfishing has led to them becoming incredibly rare throughout the country. These prehistoric-looking giants can grow up to 3 meters in length and weigh over 200 kilograms, making them true freshwater titans. Unlike most fish, the arapaima has a specialized lung that allows it to breathe air, a crucial adaptation for surviving in oxygen-poor waters of the Amazon. This ability forces them to surface every 15 to 20 minutes, making them easier to spot, but also easier targets for fishermen, which contributed to their decline. Their scales are incredibly tough, almost armor-like, providing protection against predators and even some human-made fishing tools. Arapaima are also known for their aggressive hunting style, using sudden bursts of speed to ambush prey such as fish, birds, and even small mammals that fall into the water. Despite their size, they are incredibly graceful swimmers, able to navigate through dense aquatic vegetation with ease. Conservation efforts have ramped up in recent years, with sustainable fishing programs and breeding initiatives aimed at restoring their populations. Within this reservoir, however, and in the video that you're seeing now, a man is permitted to fly fish in order to showcase one of these massive beasts. He is required to release it, and this large estuary is the home to lots of these large fish. It is a breeding ground for them, maintained by the government in order to ensure their survival throughout the generations. Aquarium arapaima are beautiful, but they'll never hold a candle to the absolutely massive specimens that existed within the waters of Brazil for centuries. Number 7. The Valley of the Moon. On private property close to Chapada dos Veadeiros National Park is an amazing and ancient place that seems to function much like a water park. It is, however, entirely natural, with gorgeous pools and water slides created from the natural stones of the park. It's often called Vale da Lua, or Valley of the Moon, due to the smooth rocks formed by the river and ancient lava flows. Over thousands of years, the powerful flow of water has sculpted these formations into their current surreal appearance, giving the landscape an almost otherworldly feel. The polished gray rocks have deep crevices, winding channels, and perfectly curved depressions, making it easy to see why people compare them to lunar terrain. Some scientists believe that the mineral composition of the stones, combined with constant erosion, has given the rocks their distinctive, nearly metallic sheen. When sunlight hits them at just the right angle, the entire area glows in a way that makes it look like something out of a sci-fi movie. During the rainy season, waterfalls rush through the channels, filling the natural pools with crystal-clear water, making it a stunning and refreshing place to swim. However, locals warn that flash floods can occur unexpectedly, making the serene pools suddenly dangerous. Despite these risks, the Valley of the Moon remains one of Brazil's most fascinating hidden gems, attracting adventurers, nature lovers, and curious travelers eager to explore its unique beauty. The rocks are incredibly unusual, with some even describing them as alien-looking because they aren't shaped like anything that naturally forms on Earth. People often say that they look like chunks of the moon that have fallen to Earth or even pieces of Venus or Mercury that have different properties from the rocks of Earth. The location has become very popular with tourists, and it's been filled to the brim with people attempting to touch and feel the strange rocks that compose the Valley of the Moon. Number 6. Dolphins fishing with people. As he was cycling along the coast of Brazil, world nomad Albert Sands discovered a unique interaction between man and dolphin at the Molhis de Barra de Laguna in Santa Catarina. Throughout the decades, with skills passed from father to son, fishermen gather each day on the shores to catch fish, helped into their massive nets by the coordination of a local pod of dolphins. But the fishermen and the dolphins benefit from this arrangement. The dolphins have developed a remarkable way of signaling to the fishermen when and where to throw their nets, often using precise body movements such as tail slaps and head dives. Researchers have found that this cooperative behavior is not accidental, but rather a learned tradition passed down through generations of both dolphins and fishermen. Unlike other fishing methods that often scare fish away, the dolphins' hunting techniques actually drive the fish toward the wading nets, making the process highly efficient for both species. This extraordinary relationship is so well established that locals can even recognize specific dolphins based on their behavior and markings. In return, the dolphins get an easy meal, snatching up the disoriented fish that escape the nets. What makes this even more fascinating is that scientists have observed that these wild dolphins seem to prefer human cooperation over hunting alone, even though they are fully capable of fending for themselves. Some experts believe that the partnership may have originated hundreds of years ago and has remained strong due to mutual trust and benefit. Documentary filmmakers and marine biologists from around the world have traveled to Brazil to witness and study this rare phenomenon, as it is one of the few known cases of ongoing, voluntary collaboration between humans and wild marine mammals. Of course, the dolphins are able to eat as many of the fish as they want, but there are plenty for both their stomachs and for the men on the shores. The men actually take the time to name each of the dolphins in the pod and even celebrate with them whenever there is a birth of a new pup into the pod. It's overall a very wholesome companionship, and seeing humans work with nature in the wild is always a particularly nice sight. There are too many instances of man just attempting to take over nature rather than work with it to extract the best for both parties. Number 5. Amazon surfing. The Pororoca, also known as the Amazon wave, is a tidal bore with waves up to 4 meters that travels as far as 500 miles inland, upstream on the Amazon River. Its name likely comes from the indigenous Tupi language, where it could translate into Great Roar. During the new and full moons, When the ocean tide is highest, water flows in from the Atlantic rather than the other way around. The Amazon's flow reverses, and a water bulge speeds upstream with great force. The roaring sound of the wave can be heard long before it arrives, creating an eerie and powerful atmosphere that adds to its mystique. Unlike ocean waves that crash onto the shore and dissipate, the Pororoca keeps rolling for miles, swallowing everything in its path, including trees, debris, and even small boats that aren't prepared for its intensity. The immense power of this wave has made it both a marvel and a menace, carving out parts of the riverbanks and altering landscapes over time. Local communities living along the riverbanks have learned to adapt to its unpredictable nature, often securing their belongings and staying indoors when the wave is expected to arrive. Despite the dangers, the thrill-seeking surfing community has turned the Pororoca into a legendary challenge, with records of surfers riding the wave for up to 12 kilometers without stopping. Some competitions have even been held to see who can conquer this relentless force of nature the longest. Scientists have also taken an interest in the phenomenon, studying how the Pororoca impacts the Amazonian ecosystem, reshaping river channels and affecting fish migration patterns. This is best observed during biannual equinoxes in September and March, where people have decided that it's an incredible wave to surf. It is very dangerous to surf the Pororoca, but it is also treated as a sort of rite of passage. Surfing the massive wave is seen as one of the pride and joys of many surfers throughout the world, and many travel to Brazil specifically to either participate or watch others participate during the two largest waves of the year. Amateurs are not recommended at all to try surfing the powerful wave. Only the most experienced surfers even have a chance of making it most of the way up the stream, and even they are generally not able to go the full trip. Number 4. Largest lily pad in the world. Brazil is home to some of the most incredible plants in the world, but the largest lily pad in the world takes the cake as one of the most interesting. Most lily pads aren't any larger than the average dinner plate, but these are often described as being the size of tires or even larger. These colossal plants belong to the Victoria amazonica species, a giant water lily native to the slow-moving waters of the Amazon River basin. Their leaves can grow up to 3 meters in diameter, strong enough to support the weight of a small child or animal without sinking. The underside of the lily pad is reinforced with a network of ribs filled with air, which helps keep it afloat despite its enormous size. These ribs are also covered in sharp spines, a natural defense mechanism to ward off hungry herbivores that might try to nibble on the leaves. Another fascinating feature is their extraordinary blooming process. Each flower opens at night, initially white to attract beetles for pollination, and then turns pink by the second night, signaling that pollination has occurred. These short-lived blossoms release a strong, fruity fragrance, making them even more enticing to insects. The plant's ability to trap beetles inside the flower overnight helps ensure cross-pollination, a unique strategy in the plant world. Indigenous communities have long revered the giant lily pads, using them in their folklore and sometimes harvesting their massive leaves for practical purposes. Scientists continue to study these impressive plants to understand how their structural properties could inspire new engineering and architectural designs. They provide the perfect amount of shade beneath the water for the various fish and other creatures living there, and the top is quite water-resistant, which allows rain to run into the surrounding river quite easily. These giant lily pads have evolved quite specifically in order to provide protection for the things beneath the surface, as well as to have enough plant matter to survive the various things that take bites out of them on a daily basis. Number 3. Lagoons among the dunes. Every year during the rainy season, the Lençóis Maranhenses National Park in Brazil goes through an incredible transformation. The pristine white dunes of what looks like a desert are seemingly flooded, overrun by gorgeous blue lagoons that spring up practically overnight. There is practically no vegetation within the park, and the massive expanse of sand would lead anybody to believe that it's a desert. The amount of rainfall that it receives, however, actually prevents it from receiving that title. As the lagoons take shape, they create a breathtaking contrast against the rolling dunes, resembling an otherworldly paradise. The water in these temporary pools is surprisingly clear, often taking on shades of turquoise and emerald, making them a dreamlike destination for photographers and explorers alike. Visitors who trek across the dunes can take a refreshing swim in the lagoons, which are often warmed by the sun, creating an experience unlike any other. Despite their short-lived nature, some of the larger lagoons persist for months, forming ecosystems that support tiny fish and other aquatic life carried in by seasonal flooding. Scientists believe that eggs from certain fish species lie dormant in the sand, hatching when the water returns, which explains how life continues to thrive in this seemingly barren landscape. The shifting sands ensure that no two visits to Lençóis Maranhenses are ever the same, as the lagoons form in different locations each year. This surreal, ever-changing environment has earned the park a reputation as one of the most unique natural wonders in the world. It receives almost 5 times the amount of rainfall in a year than the average desert does, and because of this, an entire lagoon system is created by the excess rainfall between the massive sand dunes. Mid-year, when the water has reached its peak, the lagoons can actually reach an incredible depth of 10 feet. This much water in something resembling a desert is positively unheard of. Some of these lagoons actually attach themselves to permanent sources of water, allowing for fish to move freely between the permanent and temporary waters. Number 2. The city of Fordlandia. It's quite clear that the modern car wouldn't be the same if it hadn't been for the inventions of Henry Ford, who pioneered many pieces of technology still utilized to this day. In order to do so, however, he had a number of odd tendencies, with perhaps the strangest being the fact that he built an entire town in order to process rubber. Fordlandia is a district of about 5,500 square miles in the city of Aveiro in Brazil, and Ford planned for 10,000 citizens to live there and work for the Ford business. He negotiated a deal with the Brazilian government that allowed him to take the land for free, so long as he paid them 9% of the profits generated by the rubber process there. However, Ford's vision for an industrial utopia quickly unraveled as he attempted to impose strict, almost puritanical rules on the workers, banning alcohol, tobacco, and even certain forms of entertainment. The residents, used to a more relaxed Brazilian lifestyle, grew frustrated with the rigid restrictions, and tensions began to rise. The tropical climate also proved to be a major challenge, as the rubber trees Ford planted were susceptible to disease and failed to produce the high yields he had expected. Attempts to recreate a Midwestern-style American town in the middle of the Amazon backfired, with wooden houses and paved streets quickly succumbing to the relentless jungle. Eventually, riots broke out among the workers, leading to violent clashes and the intervention of Brazilian authorities. Realizing that the town was a financial disaster, Ford abandoned the project without ever setting foot in the settlement himself. The project failed miserably, however, leading to the abandonment of the town by 1934. The town was almost entirely deserted, but 90 residents did remain in the city during the time it was abandoned. Interestingly enough, in the early 2000s, the city experienced a rush of new inhabitants as stories of the town surfaced in modern media once again. The town actually has a stable population of over 4,000 people as of the time of this video's release. It's interesting to think about what Ford would have thought of this. Number 1. Horrifying Santa theme park. If you're ever driving through Brazil on your way to Rio de Janeiro, you might spot an eerie sight on the side of the road. A derelict gang of Santa Claus figures and statues lying abandoned and surrounded by palm trees and greenery. If you look even closer, you'll notice that these figures are also paired with a sad-looking sleigh, some reindeer past their prime, and faded candy canes paving the way into what was probably quite a joyful place once upon a time. Now, however, it is simply known as Parque Alba Noel, or the abandoned Christmas theme park. Once filled with laughter and holiday cheer, the park now stands as a haunting reminder of an unfinished dream, its once bright decorations faded and overtaken by nature. Over time, vines have begun creeping over the cheerful statues, and cracked pavement leads to broken-down holiday displays that seem frozen in time. Locals have shared eerie stories about wandering through the site at night, describing how the wind makes the hollow Santas appear to whisper among the trees. Some even claim to have seen the dim glow of long-dead Christmas lights flickering in the distance, though no electricity has run through the park in years. Despite its abandoned state, a few curious visitors continue to explore the eerie wonderland, capturing haunting photos that only add to its legend. It was the brainchild of politician Antonio Albano Reis, who was known to dress as Santa Claus for the children that lived within his town. It was going to be a series of fun lands themed after various portions of Christmas, which was supposed to span over 30 million square meters. Only the Santa area was ever completed, however, because Reis unfortunately passed away in a road accident in 2004. After his death, the park largely fell into disrepair and eventually closed down without anybody wanting to take care of it. Photos of it went viral several years later when a photographer drove through, but other than that, not much has been done with the park. Which of these discoveries do you think is the most mysterious? Do you believe scientists will ever uncover the full story behind them? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps us understand what kind of content you love and guides us in creating more videos tailored just for you. We can't wait to see you in the next one.